Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku uploaded one for all. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The rain over Jaka City didn't wash the grime away. It just made the impending violence slicker. It was a cold, unseasonal downpour that hammered against the asphalt, drumming a rhythm of anxiety into the hearts of the heroes gathered in the staging area. Izuku Midoriya stood near the rear guard of the evacuation team, the damp fabric of his cowl clinging to his neck. The air smelled of ozone and antiseptic, the scent of a hospital masking a grave. His danger sense, usually a sharp buzz at the base of his skull, was currently a low, throbbing migraine. It wasn't warning him of a specific attack, it was warning him of the atmosphere. The sheer density of malice radiating from beneath the hospital was enough to make the quirks sing. Quick twitching, Deku Katsuki Bakugo growled from beside him. The blonde hero's grenadier bracers clicked as he adjusted his grip, rain hissing as it evaporated off his heated palms. You're making the extras nervous. I'm not twitching, Izuku lied, clenching his gloved fists. The green lightning of one for all flickered across his skin, illuminating the droplets of rain in suspended animation for a split second. I have a bad feeling about this one, Kaken. Different from the war. Different from Shigaraki. It's a raid on a mad scientist's basement, Bakugo scoffed, though his eyes were sharp, scanning the perimeter with predatory focus. We go in, we smash the vats, we drag the doctor out by his mustache. Simple. Burn into Team Delta, the radio crackled, the voice of Endeavor's sidekick cutting through the sound of the rain. The primary assault team has breached the morgue. Engagement has started. Secure the perimeter. Nothing leaves that hill. As if on cue, the ground shook. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a shockwave. The windows of Jaku General Hospital blew outwards in a shower of glass and concrete dust. Move! Shoto Todoroki shouted, sliding forward on a ramp of ice. Izuku didn't need telling. He engaged full cowling at 45%. The world slowing down around him as he launched himself toward the crumbling facade of the hospital. But even as he moved, that headache spiked. It wasn't just malice down there. It was something colder. Something calculated. The laboratory beneath the hospital was a testament to the hubris of Kyudai Garaki. It was a cathedral of twisted biology, illuminated by the sickly bioluminescence of Noma tanks. But today, it was a war zone. Mirko was already a blur of violence in the center of the room, tearing through a group of lower-tier Noma. Endeavor was a roaring inferno, holding back a high-end that seemed capable of regenerating from ash. Eraser! Eyes on the big one! Endeavor roared. Izuku landed in a crouch, the concrete cracking beneath his iron saws. Bakugo and Todoroki flanked him. They were the backup, meant to handle stragglers. But the situation had dissolved into chaos the moment the floor dropped out. There are too many of them, Todoroki said, unleashing a wave of fire to cauterize a near high-end that was trying to split itself in two. Focus on the doctor! Izuku yelled, scanning the chaotic gloom. We need to cut off the... His voice died in his throat. At the far end of the lab, where the shadows were deepest, a stasis tube hissed open. Unlike the others, which were filled with green or amber fluid, this tube was filled with an opaque, swirling black liquid. As the glass retracted, the liquid didn't splash out, it coalesced. A figure stepped out. It stood 8 feet tall, humanoid but unmistakably artificial. Its skin wasn't the scarred, exposed muscle of a typical Noma. It was sleek, matte black, and segmented like insect armor or high-end carbon fiber plating. Where a face should have been, there was a single, vertical slit glowing with a pulsating crimson light. Wires and cables hung from its back like a ceremonial cape, dripping viscous fluid. Subject Omega-6, a voice crackled over the lab's intercom, Garaki's voice, sounding frantic but gleeful. I wasn't finished with the calibration. But, let's see how the prototype handles the test data. New player! Bakugo yelled, launching himself into the air. Die! Kaken, wait! Analyze it first. Izuku screamed, reaching out with Black Whip. Bakugo didn't wait. He spun in midair, creating a howitzer impact funnel, turning himself into a living missile. He collided with the Black Nomu, A massive explosion shaking the foundations of the lab. Smoke and fire engulfed the corner of the room. Got him, Bakugo smirked, landing in a crouch. The smoke cleared. The black Nomu hadn't moved. It hadn't even flinched. A translucent, hexagonal barrier, amber in color, hovered inches from its sleek armor. The barrier sizzled with digital noise, like a corrupted video file. It has a shield? Izuku thought. No, that looked like data. The Nomu raised a hand. Its fingers weren't fingers. They were long, hypodermic ports that ended in glowing tips. The red slit on its face flared. A sound tore through the room, not a roar, but a screech similar to a dial-up modem amplified to 100 decibels. Several pro-heroes clutched their ears, stumbling. Eraserhead! Izuku shouted. Aizawa, currently engaged with a female high-end, whipped his head around. His red eyes locked onto the black Nomu. His hair floated. He activated erasure. Nothing happened. My quirk! Aizawa yelled, his voice tight with panic. It's not working. I can't shut it off. It's not a biological quirk factor. Garaki's voice laughed over the speakers. It's biodigital integration. You can't erase hardware? Eraserhead. That is the future. The singularity refined into pure processing power. The Nomu pointed its arm at Bakugo. The tip of its limb began to gather energy, but it wasn't fire or air pressure. It was a ball of shifting, jagged pixels, white, black, and neon green. It looked like a hole in reality. Kaken! Dodge! Izuku kicked off the ground, utilizing 100% in his legs for a fraction of a second. The air boomed behind him. Bakugo, realizing his explosion had done nothing, tried to blast himself sideways, but the screeching noise had disoriented him. He was a split second too slow. The beam fired. It was a silent lance of digital corruption. Izuku didn't think. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He didn't consider the future of the symbol of peace. He saw his friend, his rival, about to be unmade by something he didn't understand. He slammed into Bakugo's side, shoving him out of the trajectory. The beam hit Izuku. It didn't burn. That was the first thing he noticed. Fire burned. Explosions burned. This felt like subtraction. The beam struck his left shoulder and chest. There was no impact force. Instead, the moment the energy touched him, his costume disintegrated, not into ash, but into floating cubes of light that vanished into nothingness. The sensation hit his flesh a millisecond later. DKU! Bakugo screamed from where he had tumbled. Izuku fell. He hit the cold concrete, his vision swimming. He expected pain, and it came, but it was wrong. It felt like pins and needles, magnified 1,000,000 times. It felt like his arm had fallen asleep, but the static was eating him alive. He looked down at his chest. Where the beam had hit, there was no blood. The skin had turned a chaotic, shifting gray. Veins of neon blue light were spreading out from the impact site, crawling up his neck and down his torso. They looked like circuitry etched directly into his muscle fibers. Midoriya! Todoroki was there instantly, creating an ice wall to block the Nomu's follow-up attack. I can't feel my arm, Izuku gasped. His voice sounded distorted to his own ears, metallic and flanged. Don't move, Todoroki ordered, his usual calm cracking. Endeavor. We need support. Midoriya is down. The black Nomu stepped forward, the hexagonal shields flaring around it as it ignored Endeavor's hell flame. It was focused entirely on Izuku. It titled its head, the red eye slit scanning. Target acquired, the Nomu spoke. Its voice was a synthesized grinder. Quirk factor, 1 for all. Analysis, incompatible. Initiate purge. It raised its arm again. Oh no you don't, you Windows 95 reject. A massive robotic arm, painted in garish pink and gold, smashed through the ceiling of the lab, gripping the Nomu by the head and slamming it into the ground. Mei Hatsum, strapped into a hovering exorig that looked like it was held together by duct tape and prayers, descended through the hole she just made. Class 1A! Retreat! Mei screamed, her goggles zooming in and out frantically. Get him to the support tent! Now! My babies can't hold that thing for long. Bakugo scrambled to his feet, his face pale. He grabbed Izuku's good arm. Get up, nerd! Get up, Izuku tried. He really did. He tried to summon the strength of One for All. He reached for the stockpile of power, for the reassuring warmth of the embers. But when he reached for the power, he found only static. The vestiges were screaming. He collapsed, his legs turning to jelly, as the blue circuitry lines reached his chin. The triage tent was a scene of controlled pandemonium. The rain hammered against the canvas roof, a dull roar that competed with the beeping of monitors and the shouts of medics. Izuku lay on a reinforced gurney in the center of the critical tech bay. A special division May Hatsum and Melissa's shield had set up for quirk-related injuries that defied conventional medicine. Recovery Girl was elsewhere, tending to casualties on the front line. Here, it was just machines. Vitals are dropping. A medic shouted. Heart rate is erratic. BP is, God, is this reading right? 40/0? Move! May Hatsum shoved the medic aside. She wasn't wearing her usual grease-stained overalls. She was in full tactical support gear, but her face was stripped of its usual manic glee. She looked terrified. Bakugo stood in the corner, vibrating with suppressed rage. Todoroki was guarding the entrance, ensuring no stray Nomu broke the perimeter. What the hell is wrong with him? Bakugo barked. Why isn't he healing? Why isn't Recovery Girl here? Recovery Girl can't fix this, Explosion Boy. May snapped, typing furiously on a holographic keyboard projecting from her wrist. She waved a scanner over Izuku's chest. Look at the readings. She projected the scan into the air. It showed a biological map of Izuku's body. His heart, lungs, and brain were highlighted, but spreading from his left shoulder was a mass of black data, consuming the biological markers. It's a biodigital virus, May explained, her voice trembling. That Nomu, it didn't just hit him with energy. It injected a self-replicating code designed to rewrite biological matter into data. It's literally digitizing his cells and then deleting them. Deleting him? Bakugo whispered. Like a computer file? Exactly like a file, May said. She grabbed a syringe of glowing blue liquid and jammed it into Izuku's neck. This is an nanite blocker. It should slow the write speed, but it won't stop it. On the bed, Izuku convulsed. The blue lines had reached his left eye. The green iris was gone, replaced by a flickering white light. Keikaken, Izuku rasped. His right hand, the only part of him not yet trembling, reached out blindly. Bakugo was there in a second, gripping the hand hard enough to bruise. Shut up, Deku. Save your breath. I can't feel. One for all, Izuku whispered, a tear leaking from his good eye. It's getting dark. The static, it's so loud. Stop talking. Bakugo yelled, his voice cracking. Hatsum. Fix him. Build something. You always build something. May was frantically tearing cables out of a large, heavy-duty server rack sitting in the corner of the tent. It was a beast of a machine, humming with the power of a small generator. It was labeled Project Nimasani. I can't fix the hardware. May screamed back, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the grime. His body is the hardware. The virus has corrupted the motherboard. If the hardware rots, the software is lost. Speak Japanese. Bakugo roared. May spun around, holding a thick, fiber-optic cable with a terrifyingly large Neuralink needle at the end. He's dying, Bakugo. His body is going to shut down in less than 3 minutes. Once his brain activity stops, the virus wipes everything. His mind, his memories, his quirk, gone. Deleted. So what are you doing? Todoroki asked from the doorway, his eyes wide. I can't save the body, May said, her voice turning steely with resolve. But I might be able to save the data. She rolled the massive server unit next to the bed. This is a prototype. Melissa and I were working on it to study the vestige phenomenon in quirks. It's designed to house bioelectric consciousness signatures. It's a soul drive. Bakugo stared at the machine, then at Izuku. You want to put him in a box? I want to upload him, May corrected. She began typing rapidly on the server's terminal. I'm going to hijack the virus's protocol. Instead of letting it delete him, I'm going to use the conversion process to migrate his consciousness into this server. It's a one-way trip. If I do this, his body will be an empty shell, a vegetable. And if you don't? Bakugo asked. Then he's dead in 2 minutes. The silence in the tent was heavier than the raid outside. The beep of the heart monitor was slowing down. Beep. Beep. Izuku's grip on Bakugo's hand weakened. The gray rot was spreading across his throat. Do it, Bakugo whispered. What? Mei paused. Do it! Bakugo screamed, explosions popping in his palms from sheer stress. Don't let him die. Put him in the damn box. Mei nodded. She grabbed the neural needle. Midoriya, can you hear me? Izuku's head lolled. The blue circuitry was covering half his face now. He blinked, and the motion was accompanied by a faint electronic whir. Mei, this is going to hurt, Mei said, her voice breaking. It's going to feel like being pulled through a straw. You have to focus, Midoriya. Focus on who you are. Focus on your name. Focus on the core of One for All. Don't let the data scatter. I trust you, Izuku breathed. Mei didn't hesitate. She positioned the needle at the base of Izuku's skull, right into the brainstem. Initiating neural transfer, Mei shouted, hitting the enter key with her elbow. Bypassing firewalls. Maximum bandwidth. Don't you dare crash on me, you stupid machine! She plunged the needle in. Pain. Izuku had broken bones. He had torn muscles. He had been burned, beaten, and blasted. He knew pain intimately, but this was not pain. This was undoing. The moment the needle breached his spine, the world didn't fade to black, it exploded into white. He felt the sensation of his own body, but it was retreating. He felt the cold rain, the grip of Bakugo's hand, the pain in his chest, and then, suddenly, he was viewing those sensations as if they were text on a screen. Heart_rate, critical. Oxygen_level, 12%. Tactile_feedback, hand_grip source, Bakugo. He was being translated. Izuku Midoriya was being stripped away, layer by layer. First, the physical senses vanished. He could no longer feel the bed. Then, the proprioception. He didn't know where his limbs were. Then, the abstract. He felt a violent tugging at his core. It was the virus, a hungry, gnashing maw of red code trying to eat him. But then, a green light, Mei's code, wrapped around him like a lifeline. Come on, Midoriya! Mei's voice echoed, not through ears, but directly into his thought process. He felt himself being pulled upwards, out of the heavy, rotting meat of his body. But he wasn't alone. Hold on, Ninth! The voice was Yoichi's. We are moving! Brace yourself! Daigoro Banjo roared. The One for All quirk factor, that massive, swirling sun of power, was too big. It was too heavy. As Izuku was pulled through the digital straw, he felt the vestiges clinging to him. They were heavy files, massive terabytes of history and power. The strain was unbearable. He felt his sense of self fracturing. Was he Izuku? Was he All Might? Was he the fourth? Focus! He remembered his mom. He remembered All Might on the beach. He remembered the promise to Shigaraki. I am Izuku Midoriya. I am a hero. With a soundless scream that rippled through the local network of Jaka's city, Izuku let go of the physical world. Back in the tent, the scream that came from Izuku's body was blood-curdling. His back arched off the gurney, his eyes shooting wide open, glowing with blinding white light. Every screen in the tent, the heart monitors, Mei's holographic displays, even the digital watches on the medic's wrists, exploded with static. The massive server, Mnemosyne, began to howl. Its fans spun up to jet engine speeds. The casing began to glow red-hot. Cooling! Mei shrieked. Todoroki! Cool the server! It's overheating! The file size is too big. He's melting the processor. Todoroki didn't ask questions. He slammed his right hand onto the server casing, frost instantly spreading across the metal, battling the heat generating from within. Steam hissed violently, filling the tent with a white fog. Transfer at 80%. Mei yelled, watching a progress bar on her wrist that was fluctuating wildly. Come on, Deku! Fit! You have to fit! Izuku's body convulsed one last time. The gray rot on his skin stopped spreading instantly. The blue glowing lines flared brighter than the sun, blinding everyone in the tent. And then silence. The light died. The server's fans slowed down to a steady hum. The monitors stopped freaking out. On the gurney, Izuku Midoriya lay perfectly still. The gray patches on his skin remained, like scars from a lightning strike, but the glow was gone. The heart monitor let out a single, continuous, high-pitched tone. Beep. No, Bakugo whispered. He dropped Izuku's hand. It was limp. No. Wake up. Mei Hatsum didn't look at the body. She was staring at the server. A small, green LED on the front of the black metal box flickered. Then it turned solid. A prompt appeared on the main screen of the server. System reboot successful. New hardware detected. Welcome user DKU. Mei collapsed against the table, sliding down to the muddy floor, gasping for air. He's in the box. Bakugo stared at the flat line on the medical monitor. He looked at the pale, empty face of his childhood friend. Then he looked at the black box humming on the floor. He's in there? Bakugo asked, his voice hollow. His consciousness. His quirk. Everything, Mei panted, wiping grease and tears from her face. His body is empty. Keep it on life support. Maybe someday we can download him back. But for now, she patted the cold metal of the server. He's the ghost in the machine, the digital realm. Izuku opened his eyes. Or at least, he performed the cognitive action that he associated with opening his eyes. He expected darkness. He expected the void. Instead, he was standing in a city. But it wasn't a city of concrete and glass. It was a city of light. The buildings were towering constructs of neon data streams, pulsing with information. The sky above was a swirling vortex of hexadecimal code, shifting colors like an aurora borealis. He looked down at his hands. They were glowing green, translucent, composed of millions of tiny, shifting polygons. He was wearing his hero costume, but it was perfect. No tears, no dirt, made of pure light. Where? Izuku spoke. His voice echoed, sounding perfect, crisp, devoid of the stutter of fear. He looked around. He was standing on a platform of white light. Below him, he could see streams of data rushing like highways, emails, phone calls, security feeds, financial transactions. The pulse of the world. Quite the view, isn't it, Ninth? Izuku spun around. Standing behind him were 7 figures. They shimmered with a glitchy, static aura, like old VHS tapes being played on a 4K screen. Yoichi Shigaraki stood at the front, his long white hair flowing in a digital wind that didn't exist. First? Izuku gasped. Everyone? We made it, Nana Shimura said, her cape fluttering. She looked down at her hands, which were pixelating slightly. Though it seems the transfer changed us. We aren't just spirit anymore. We're information. Where are we? Izuku asked, stepping toward the edge of the platform. Yoichi smiled, a sad, knowing smile. He gestured to the infinite expanse of data stretching out in every direction, a universe of information, connected by invisible cables and satellite signals. We are everywhere, Izuku, Yoichi said. We are in the network. Izuku looked out at the horizon. In the distance, he saw a dark, jagged mountain of red code rising like a sore thumb in the beautiful landscape. He felt a chill, not on his skin, but in his core processor. The villain, Izuku realized. AFO. Shigaraki. Can they reach us here? Not yet, Banjo grinned, cracking his digital knuckles. But if they try, we've got home field advantage now. Izuku clenched his fist. He felt a surge of power, but it wasn't the muscle-tearing stockpile of One for All. It was speed. It was calculation. It was the ability to be in 1,000 places at once. He focused. He thought of the hospital. He thought of the tent. Suddenly, a window opened in the air in front of him. It was a security camera feed from inside the tent. He saw his own body, pale and still. He saw Bakugo crying, his head resting on the server box. He saw Mei Hatsum slumped on the floor. Izuku reached out to the screen. He wanted to tell them he was okay. He focused his will on the electronic devices in the room. I am here. The physical world. Bakugo was about to punch the server. He wanted to break something. The grief was rising in his throat like bile. Suddenly, the lights in the tent flickered. Buzz. Buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. Bakugo froze. He looked up. The heart monitor, which had been flatlining, suddenly changed. The line didn't spike with a heartbeat. Instead, the green line contorted, bending into shapes that were impossible for a medical readout. The line twisted, forming jagged, pixelated letters. I am here. Bakugo stared at the screen. Tears blurred his vision, but he saw it. He let out a ragged, choking laugh. Nerd, Bakugo choked out, placing his hand on the server box again, this time gently. You absolute nerd. The screen flickered again. Kaken. Don't cry. Inside the server, the fan whirred louder, like a heart beating in a chest of steel. The hero Deku was dead. Long live the system admin. The first thing Izuku Midoriya realized was that silence did not exist here. In the physical world, silence was the absence of sound. It was the space between heartbeats, the lull in a conversation, the quiet of a sleeping house. But here, in the void that lay between the circuits, silence was a myth. There was only the hum. It was a sound that wasn't a sound, a vibration that rattled the very concept of his teeth. It was the roar of a billion distinct signals firing at once. It was the collective noise of human civilization, the encrypted screams of financial markets, the whispers of text messages, the thunder of streaming video, the lightning strikes of GPS pings. It was a chaotic, deafening ocean of binary, and Izuku was drowning in it. He floated, or the data equivalent of floating, in a space that defied Euclidean geometry. Above him, the sky was a shifting fractal of neon green and electric blue, swirling like oil on water. Below him, there was no ground, only a bottomless chasm of scrolling code, waterfalls of hexadecimal numbers cascading into the dark. Breathe, ninth. The voice cut through the static like a knife. It didn't come from a direction, it simply was, inserting itself directly into Izuku's processing queue. Izuku tried to turn his head, but the motion felt sluggish, like moving through molasses. He looked down at his hands. They were glowing, translucent, composed of millions of tiny, shimmering polygons that constantly rearranged themselves. He wasn't flesh and blood anymore. He was a render, a high-fidelity avatar in a low-resolution world. First, Izuku projected the thought. It manifested as a ripple of sound waves, visible in the air before him. Yoichi Shigaraki stepped out of a beam of light. But he didn't look like the ghostly, waif-like spirit Izuku remembered from the vestige dreams. He looked sharper. His edges were jagged, flickering with digital artifacts. His white hair trailed behind him not like hair, but like fiber-optic cables, pulsing with faint light. Focus your rendering, Yoichi instructed gently, floating closer. The data stream is overwhelming because you are trying to process the entire internet at once. You are a single node connected to a global network. You must erect a firewall. I don't know how, Izuku stammered. The sensory overload was nauseating. He could feel the weather in Brazil. He could taste the stock market crash in Tokyo. He could hear a teenager crying in a bedroom in Hokkaido. It was too much. It was everything, everywhere, all at once. It's too loud. Please make it stop. Visualize, a gruff voice barked. Daigoro Banjo, the fifth user, materialized next to Yoichi. He looked like a hulking mass of glitch art, his funky jacket constantly texture popping. You're a hero, kid. Think defense. Think shielding. Izuku squeezed his digital eyes shut. He thought of the server box May had put him in. He thought of the thick metal walls, the air gap, the safety of containment. He imagined a bubble around himself, a sphere of absolute zero, where no signal could penetrate without his permission. Access denied? The roar of the world suddenly muffled. The chaotic swirling sky dimmed. The headache that wasn't a headache faded into a dull thrum. Izuku gasped, a sound of simulated air rushing into simulated lungs. He fell to his knees on a platform of white grid lines that materialized beneath him to catch his fall. I'm alive? He asked, looking up at the first and fifth. Define alive, the second user, Kudo, said, stepping out of the shadows. His face was marred by heavy pixelation, like a corrupted JPEG, but his eyes were piercing red lasers. Your biological functions have ceased. Your heart is being pumped by a machine. Your brain waves are flatlining because your consciousness has been migrated to an external drive. So I'm dead, Izuku whispered, the weight of the realization crushing him. I died in the lab. No, Nana Shimura's voice was soft, maternal. She appeared, looking the most human of them all, though her cape flowed with the texture of liquid mercury. She knelt beside Izuku, placing a hand on his shoulder. He couldn't feel the warmth of skin, but he felt a transfer of data, a packet of comfort. You are not dead, Izuku. You have evolved. Or rather, One for All has evolved. Izuku looked at her, then at the others gathering around him. And the fourth was analyzing a stream of code flowing through his fingers. The third was scanning the horizon. All Might's vestige, the blurry, incomplete ghost, was flickering violently in the corner, silent and distorted. What do you mean, evolved? Izuku asked, standing up. The environment responded to his intent. The floor expanded, creating a stable surface. One for All was always a stockpiling quirk, Yoichi explained, gesturing to the infinite digital horizon. It stockpiled power, energy, will. But energy and information are two sides of the same coin. When that Noma hit you with the digitization beam, it tried to delete the biological anchor of the quirk. It tried to format the drive. But the drive was too big. Mei Hatsum's voice echoed in Izuku's memory, though she wasn't there. Precisely, Yoichi nodded. One for All has over a century of accumulated data. The spirits, the quirks, the raw power, it was too dense to be deleted instantly. When that girl, Hatsum, opened a port to the server, the energy took the path of least resistance. We flowed out of the biology, and into the technology. We are no longer biological energy stored in cells, the second user stated bluntly. We are now processing power stored in silicon. We are a sentient operating system. Izuku looked at his hands again. He clenched his fist. Green lightning crackled around it, but it wasn't electricity. It was raw code, ones and zeros moving so fast they looked like light. So, what am I now? Izuku asked, his voice trembling. Am I just a program? A simulation of Izuku Midoriya? You are the user, Nana said firmly. You are the admin. This world, this infinite sea of information, it is your domain now. But you must be careful, Izuku. The digital world has its own predators, and you are currently running on a battery. The long drive home, the rain hadn't stopped. If anything, it had gotten heavier, turning the roads leading away from Jaka City into slick, treacherous rivers of asphalt. The convoy was silent. Usually, after a raid, there was adrenaline, chatter, the frantic coordination of rescue efforts. But the raid on Garaki's lab had ended in a Pyrrhic victory so confusing, no one knew how to process it. Class 1A sat in the back of a heavily armored transport truck. The mood was suffocating. Ochako Uraraka sat with her knees pulled to her chest, staring blankly at the metal floor. Her face was streaked with mud and tears that had long since dried. Beside her, Tsuyu Ajiri rested a hand on her arm, but said nothing. Tenya Ida sat rigid near the rear doors, his helmet off, his glasses fogged up. He looked like a statue of grief, guarding the precious cargo strapped down in the center of the truck. It wasn't a person. It was a stasis pod. Inside the pod, floating in a suspension of nutrient-rich gel, was Izuku Midoriya. He looked peaceful, almost like he was sleeping, except for the intricate web of wires and tubes connecting his body to the life support systems, and the gray, circuit-like scars that marred the left side of his body, motionless and dull. But the eyes of the students weren't on the body. They were on the black, humming box sitting next to the pod. Project Mnemosyne. The server was hooked up to the truck's internal generator. Thick cables ran from the server directly into the base of the stasis pod, connecting to the port at the back of Izuku's neck. Katsuki Bakugo sat on the floor, right next to the server. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was just staring. His eyes were bloodshot, red-rimmed and terrifyingly intense. One hand rested on the black metal casing of the server, feeling the vibration of the cooling fans. Bakugo, Kirishima whispered from across the aisle. Man, you should sit up here. Get strapped in. Shut up, Bakugo rasped. His voice was wrecked, like he'd swallowed broken glass. I'm not moving. He's stable, right? Kaminari asked, his voice barely audible. Hatsum said he was stable. Stable is a relative term. A voice came from the front of the truck. Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead, leaned against the partition. His leg was bandaged, and one eye was covered by a gauze patch, but he was awake. His body is in a persistent vegetative state. Brain activity is 0. Clinically, he's brain dead. Don't say that. Uraraka snapped, her head jerking up. Don't say that. He's in the box. May said he's in the box. We have to be realistic, Uraraka, Aizawa said, though his tone lacked its usual bite. He sounded exhausted. Defeated. Hatsum believes she transferred his consciousness. But we've never seen tech like this. We don't know if it's really him in there, or just a copy. Or just data. It's him, Bakugo growled. He didn't look up. He patted the server box. I know it's him. The nerd is too stubborn to die. He's just stuck. He's stuck in the internet, or whatever. We're taking him to Yue, Momo Yayorosa said, wiping her eyes. To the secure sublevels. Principal Nizu is already preparing the mainframes. If he really is in there, we need to give him more processing power. Hatsum said this server is just a lifeboat. He needs a city. A ghost in the machine, Tokoemi murmured, crossing his arms. Trapped in the dark abyss of the web. Not helpful, Tokoemi, Jiro muttered, though she tapped her earphone jack nervously against her leg. The truck hit a pothole, jolting everyone. Bakugo's hand clamped onto the server box instantly, stabilizing it. Watch the road, you extras! He roared at the driver partition. You're carrying the number 1 hero back there. The outburst hung in the air. The number 1 hero. Izuku hadn't even graduated yet. And now, he was a vegetable in a jar and a ghost in a box. We failed him, Ida said quietly. I am the class representative. I should have been there. We should have protected him. He saved me, Bakugo said, the anger draining out of him, leaving only a hollow ache. The damn idiot pushed me out of the way. It was aimed at me. That digitizing crap, it was meant for me. He looked at the stasis pod. At the motionless face of his childhood friend. You better be in there, Deku, Bakugo whispered to the humming machine. You better be figuring this out. Because if you leave me here alone to deal with these idiots, I'll kill you myself. The admin console. Back in the digital construct, time felt irrelevant. It could have been seconds or years since Izuku arrived. He was getting the hang of movement. He realized that walking was a skeuomorphic habit, a holdover from his biological life. He didn't need to walk. He simply needed to change his coordinate address. If he wanted to be on top of a nearby tower of blue data, he just edited his location variable, and pop, he was there. He stood on a high vantage point with the vestiges, overlooking the representation of the local network. It looked like a sprawling metropolis of light. This is the Jaka Local Area Network, the third user explained, pointing to the streams of traffic. It's currently chaotic due to the villain attack. Emergency services channels are flooded. How do I see outside? Izuku asked. I want to see my friends. You are currently contained within the Namasani server, Yoichi said. Think of it as a small apartment. It has a connection to the outside world. The cable may plugged in, but you are currently in offline mode to conserve energy. If you open the connection fully, you risk flooding the server with too much data and crashing. But I sent a message, Izuku argued. In the tent. I flashed the lights. I spoke to Kaken. A burst transmission, Nana said. Dangerous, but effective. You pushed a tiny packet of data through the output port. But to truly interact? To see? To hear? You need to hack the peripherals. Hack? Izuku blinked. I don't know how to hack. I barely know how to use Photoshop. You don't need to know code, kid, Banjo laughed, slapping Izuku on the back, which sent a ripple of static through Izuku's avatar. You are the code. You just need to assert dominance. One for all gives you admin privileges. You just have to demand access. Try it, the second user challenged, crossing his arms. There is a webcam on the dashboard of the truck transporting your server. Access it. Izuku closed his eyes. He reached out with his mind, searching for the connection. He followed the cord, a visualized silver thread stretching from his feet into the darkness above. He felt the thread vibrate. He followed it up until he hit a wall. Firewall. UA_transport_04. Security level high. It felt like a physical door. A locked steel blast door. It's locked, Izuku said. Smash it, Banjo grinned. Pick it, the fourth suggested calmly. Authorize yourself, Yoichi corrected. Don't break the door, Izuku. You own the building. Izuku took a deep breath. He placed his hand on the mental image of the door. He didn't try to punch it smash. He didn't try to black whip it. He focused on the concept of permission. He focused on the feeling of his provisional hero license in his pocket. The authority to act. User, Deku requesting access. Password, 1 for all signature. The door didn't open, it dissolved. It turned into mist and vanished. Suddenly, a screen popped into existence in front of him. It was grainy, night vision footage. He saw the interior of the truck. He saw Ida's rigid posture. He saw Uraraka's tear-stained face. He saw the back of Aizawa's head, and he saw Bakugo, sitting right next to him, or rather, the server. Bakugo looked terrible. He looked smaller somehow. Kaken, Izuku whispered. He tried to reach through the screen, to touch Bakugo's shoulder. Warning, bandwidth limit reached. Action blocked. A red dialogue box flashed in his vision, and a sharp shock, like a static zap, hit his hand. Careful, Yoichi warned. Passive observation is low cost. Active interference requires energy. Your server is running on a portable battery. If you try to project a hologram or hack the truck's speakers now, you might drain the battery before you reach UA. Izuku pulled his hand back. So I can only watch? For now, Nana said sadly. Until you are connected to a main power source. You are a ghost, Izuku. You can haunt, but you cannot manifest. Izuku watched the screen. He saw Uraraka wipe her nose. He's going to be okay, Uraraka whispered in the video feed. Deku always comes back. I'm here, Uraraka, Izuku said to the silent digital air. I'm right here. System integration, UA high. The arrival at UA was a covert military operation. The truck bypassed the main gate, driving directly into a subterranean tunnel usually reserved for moving giant robots or heavy ordnance. When the doors opened, it wasn't students who greeted them. It was Nizu, Power Loader, Cementas, and a team of medical droids. Quickly! Move the stasis pod to the Bacta tank. Nizu ordered, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by efficient urgency. Power Loader, take the server unit. Careful! Do not jostle it. I've got it! Power Loader shouted, using his mech suit to gently lift the Namasani server. Hatsum is already in the mainframe room setting up the cradle. Bakugo refused to let go of the server until Power Loader had it secure. Don't drop him, Bakugo threatened. I'm not going to drop him, Bakugo, Power Loader sighed. Go get checked out by the medics. You're bleeding. I'm fine, Bakugo snapped, following the mech suit as it walked deeper into the facility. They entered a room that hummed with immense power. It was the heart of UA's security network. Walls of servers lined the room, blinking in rhythmic patterns. In the center, Mei Hatsum was frantically wiring a massive pedestal. Bring it here! Bring it here! Mei yelled, her goggles spinning. Battery is at 12%. He's running on fumes. Power Loader set the black box down onto the pedestal. Mei immediately jammed a thick, industrial-grade cable into the server's rear port. Initiating handshake protocol, Mei muttered, typing on a console with blurring speed. Connecting Namasani to UA mainframe. Rerouting power from grid B. The lights in the room dimmed for a second, then flared bright. The server's fans revved up, then settled into a smooth, powerful purr. Connection established. Mei cheered, throwing her hands up. He's online! He's got the juice of a nuclear reactor now. Excellent, Nizu said, clasping his paws. He looked at the black box. Now, let us see if anyone is home. He walked up to a main terminal and tapped a microphone. Testing, testing. Midoriya, my boy? Are you receiving this? The expansion. In the digital realm, the change was instantaneous. One moment, Izuku was standing on a small platform, afraid to move for fear of draining his battery. The next moment, the sky exploded with light. The ceiling of the digital world tore open, and a massive pillar of golden energy crashed down. It wasn't destructive, it was invigorating. Izuku felt his avatar surge with power. The transparency of his skin vanished, replaced by a solid, high-definition form. The crackling static around the vestiges smoothed out into crystal-clear resolution. The small platform he stood on expanded. It rushed outwards at the speed of light, building a floor, then walls, then a ceiling. In seconds, Izuku wasn't floating in a void. He was standing in a massive, digital recreation of the UA High Command Center. But it was better. Cleaner. The screens were floating holograms. The walls were made of shifting data streams. Whoa, Banjo whistled. Now this is an upgrade. He's been connected to the main grid, the second user observed, his red eyes glowing brighter. Unlimited power. High-speed fiber connection. You are no longer running on a Game Boy, kid. You're a supercomputer. A voice boomed from the sky, Nisa's voice. Testing, testing. Midoriya, my boy? Are you receiving this? Izuku looked up. He felt the input. It was coming from an audio peripheral in the server room. I can hear him, Izuku shouted. How do I answer? You don't need to flash lights anymore, Yoichi smiled. You have the bandwidth. Hijack the speakers. Project your voice. Izuku focused. He visualized the speakers in the room. He grabbed the audio output stream. He didn't just want to speak, he wanted to be seen. I can do more than speak, Izuku realized. There are hollow projectors in that room. I remember them from the cultural festival prep. He reached out to the projectors. He grabbed the drivers. He pushed his own avatar's data through the lens. The ghost appears. In the UA server room, the air shimmered. Energy spike. Mei yelled, looking at her monitors. He's drawing power. A massive amount. Is the server overheating? Power loader asked. No, Mei grinned maniacally. He's booting up. In the center of the room, above the server box, the hollow projectors flared to life. Blue light coalesced, swirling and knitting together. First the boots. Then the legs. Then the torso. Izuku Midoriya appeared. He was life-sized, translucent blue, and glowing softly. He was wearing his hero costume, complete with the cowl pulled down and the iron soles. But there were details that were wrong. Floating rings of code circled his wrists like bracelets. His eyes didn't have pupils. They were just glowing white lights. Class 1A, who had crowded into the doorway despite Aizawa's orders, gasped in unison. Deku-kun? Uraraka whispered. The hologram looked around the room. It looked at Nizu. It looked at Mei. Finally, it locked eyes with Bakugo. The hologram opened its mouth. The voice that came out of the speakers was Izuku's, but it was layered, slightly synthesized, as if 2 or 3 people were speaking in perfect chorus. I'm here, the hologram said. The audio synced perfectly with the movement of the blue lips. Midoriya! Nizu stepped forward, his tail twitching with excitement. Remarkable! Truly remarkable! You are conscious? I think so, Hollow Izuku said, looking at his own hands. It feels strange. I can see everything, Principal. I can see the cameras in the hallways. I can see the files on your tablet. I can see the temperature of the coolant in the pipes. Stay out of my browser history. Mineta shouted from the back of the group, earning a smack from Azuri. Midoriya, Aizawa stepped through the crowd. He looked at the hologram with a mix of relief and profound sadness. What is your status? Can you feel pain? No pain, Sensei, Izuku replied. Just noise. It's very loud here. But the vestiges are helping me filter it. The vestiges? All Might's voice broke. The former symbol of peace stood at the very back, his skeletal form trembling. He hadn't spoken since the truck arrived. Hollow Izuku turned to All Might. The hologram smiled, that classic, wobbly Midoriya smile. All Might, Izuku said softly. I can see your vestige. He's here with me. He's very quiet, but he's here. All Might fell to his knees, sobbing. I am so sorry, my boy. I am so sorry I couldn't protect you. You don't need to apologize, Izuku said. He tried to step off the pedestal, but his hologram flickered. Whoa. Still getting used to the geometry. Don't push it, Mei warned. You're consuming a terabyte of data per second just to maintain that image. If you crash the UA firewall, Nizu will kill me. I won't crash it, Izuku said, his voice firming up. I can feel the limits now. I'm learning. He looked at Bakugo again. Bakugo hadn't moved. He was staring at the blue ghost with an unreadable expression. Kaken, Izuku said. You look like a glitchy mess, Bakugo scoffed, though there was no heat in it. He walked up to the pedestal. He reached out a hand toward the hologram. Izuku reached out too. Their hands met. Of course, they didn't touch. Bakugo's hand passed right through the blue light. But as they intersected, the hologram sparked. Yellow electricity, Bakugo's color, mixed with the blue code. I can't feel you, Bakugo whispered, his voice tight. I can read your heat signature, Izuku offered, trying to make a joke, though his voice wavered. Your palms are sweating. Bakugo let out a wet, choked laugh. Shut up, nerd. So, Aizawa interrupted, bringing the room back to reality. You are effectively an AI now. A sentient program with full access to our systems. Yes, Izuku nodded. The rings of code around his wrist spun faster. That presents complications, Niza mused. But also opportunities. Midoriya, do you realize what you have access to? I do, Izuku said. His glowing white eyes narrowed slightly. I can see the news feeds. The villains, they think they won because they took out Endeavor and me. They're planning riots in Mustafa tonight. We know, Aizawa said. We're scrambling patrols. You don't need patrols, Izuku said. His voice changed. It became deeper, more resonant. The system admin voice. I can see the traffic grid. I can see the automated drone systems. I can see the electronic locks on the villain hideouts. The hologram stood taller, growing a few inches. I can't punch them anymore, Izuku said, and the room temperature seemed to drop as the servers hummed louder. But I can shut them down. I can lock them in. I can turn the city against them. Midoriya, Niza warned, his ears flattening. We must be careful. We are heroes, not tyrants. I know, Izuku said, looking at his hands, which were now streaming with rapid-fire data. But I can save everyone now, Principal. I don't have to choose who to run to. I'm already there. The hologram turned to the screen on the wall, which showed a live news report of a villain looting an electronics store in downtown Mustafa. Watch, Izuku said. On the screen, the lights in the electronics store suddenly exploded. The automatic security shutters slammed down, trapping the villain inside. The fire suppression system activated, dousing him in foam. A police drone, which had been idling 3 blocks away, suddenly zoomed into frame, circling the trapped villain. Subject apprehended, Izuku said calmly in the server room. Police notified. ETA 2 minutes. The room was silent. Class 1A stared at their friend. He wasn't just a ghost. He was a god in the machine. Bakugo looked at the hologram, and for the first time, a look of genuine fear crossed his face. Not fear for Izuku, but fear of what Izuku was becoming. Deku, Bakugo whispered. What the hell are you? Izuku turned back, his pixelated face offering a sad, digitized smile. I'm the system admin, Kaken. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving only the hum of the servers and the stunned silence of the heroes. The concept of waking up was becoming obsolete. Izuku Midoriya didn't wake up anymore because he didn't sleep. Sleep was a biological necessity, a defragmentation process for a meat-based neural network. For the entity now residing in the UA mainframe, secure sublevel 4, rest was merely a low-power mode, a throttling of background processes while the core consciousness continued to hum. Izuku stood on the precipice of the data stream. To his perception, the Internet of Japan wasn't a series of tubes or invisible waves. It was a sprawling, bioluminescent ocean. Every packet of data was a drop of water. Every email was a ripple. Every secure server was an island fortress. It's morning, a voice drifted over his shoulder. Izuku turned his avatar around. In this digital construct, which he had subconsciously modeled after the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park, specifically the clean version he had created with All Might, N, the fourth user, was sitting on a pile of digital driftwood. Morning, Izuku replied. His voice didn't vibrate air, it transmitted code. 6 a.m. Commuter traffic is increasing by 14% in the Shibuya ward. Weather sensors indicate a 90% chance of rain in Fukuoka. And Kaken just woke up. His heart rate elevated from 55 to 72 BPM in 3 seconds, and raised an eyebrow, or the glitchy approximation of one. You're monitoring his vitals? I'm monitoring everyone's vitals, Izuku said, looking back at the ocean of data. Anyone with a smartwatch. Anyone with a pacemaker connected to Bluetooth. Anyone carrying a phone. It's not that I want to forth. It's just there. It's like standing in a room full of people shouting their names. You need to filter, ninth, and said gently. That's what danger sense evolved into. Prediction. Awareness. But if you don't learn to ignore the noise, you'll crash. I can't ignore it, Izuku whispered. He raised a hand, and a window materialized in the air. It showed a live feed of a crosswalk in Tokyo. Someone might need help. If I stop watching, I might miss it. You can't save everyone, Izuku. Nana Shimura's voice joined them. She walked out of the digital surf, her cape flowing like liquid mercury. Even with the speed of light, you are only one consciousness. But I have to try, Izuku said. The green lightning of One for All crackled around his avatar, now indistinguishable from high-fidelity 8K code. I'm not limited by my legs anymore. I'm not limited by distance. I am here. I am everywhere. Nana looked at N with a worried expression. They had saved the boy's life, yes. But in doing so, they had unleashed something terrifyingly vast. Prepare yourself, ninth, the first user, Yoichi, called out from atop a pile of virtual trash. The waking world is coming to visit. Your mother is here. The data stream rippled. A priority request flagged in Izuku's system. Incoming connection. Secure room 4 physical terminal. User Yagi_Tashinori. Guest Midoriya_Inkeo. Izuku froze. The endless stream of data suddenly felt cold.